Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You can probably tell I'm buttering you up by using the catchphrase already. Hello, everyone. This is going to be a different video than usual, wherein I'm just going to ramble about The Wonderful 101 and its Kickstarter off the top of my head for a little bit. We don't have our usual production value to save us here, so it's going to be a little bit meandering, methinks. And you might also hear some rain in the background here, but just think of it as our little rainy mood. So before I begin, I suppose I'd like to be clear about a couple of things. First of all, this video is going to be delisted and or deleted after a little while. I'm thinking probably a week or two. I might leave it up for the full duration of the Kickstarter that I'm talking about. That seems like maybe a good idea. I don't know. Anyway, it doesn't really fit with the rest of the channel. I don't want to clog it up. I don't want to leave it there. I don't want to take up space. This is a very relevant, current thing that's not really going to be that worthwhile anymore after a couple of weeks have gone by. So I'll be delisting it, okay? So that's all part of the plan. When it goes down, that's all part of the plan. And another thing, if you follow me on Twitter or Patreon, you know this already, most likely, but this seems like a good time to say that I don't interact with developers or publishers. I don't accept anything from developers or publishers. I don't talk to them. I'm on Twitter, so, we cross paths sometimes here and there, but I try to maintain a distance from them so as to remain impartial. So obviously that means then I have no association with Platinum, nothing in this video. This video is not sponsored, nothing like that. I put my money into the Kickstarter like anybody else, and I would like to try and convince you to do the same. So the reason for that, of course, getting into the meat of this discussion now, is The Wonderful 101 is my favorite game. I think before it came out, I didn't really have a clear favorite. I would have given you an answer, and the answer would have changed from time to time, and I think I wouldn't have been too sure about it. But ever since The Wonderful 101 came out 6 years ago, it's been my favorite game, and that hasn't changed in the time since then. In the time since then, I would say I've only found one contender, which would be Rain World. While we're praising games here, Rain World would be a forerunner for that position in my mind. But even though I love that game, Rain World, I think The Wonderful 101 is just a little bit more to my taste. We all have preferences for what we prefer, and although I think I'm very open-minded about those types of experiential games that Rain World falls into, The Wonderful 101 is just a bit more my speed, So it's my favorite game. So seeing it languish on the Wii U, where it was doomed not to get any sales, I think that console sold maybe 13 million. So if a 100% attach rate is going to give you 13 million, which doesn't even cover what some individual games sell on other platforms nowadays. So it was never going to do well in terms of sales, and it being a new IP and maybe a little bit confusing to people on first glance, it wasn't going to do very well. And also critically as well, I don't think it did as well as I wish it had. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. Personally, I feel like maybe critics didn't give it the chance it deserved either. But I don't know. It's not that I'm that familiar with everything that was said about it. I just know that the Metacritic score is surprisingly low for what it is. But anyway, so in terms of what I feel anyway is a disparity between how the game was received, both critically and commercially, and its actual quality. The Wonderful 101 was a pretty big injustice as far as I was concerned. So they've recently launched a Kickstarter to bring it to other platforms, and that is sort of fever dream-like territory as far as I'm concerned, because the IP is, or at least was, co-owned by Nintendo. It's not clear anymore whether that's still the case, but Nintendo funded the game and at least co-owned the property at some point. So in some sense, this will be one of the first, or the first in a long time. Maybe there's some older games that got different releases, like if we go back to I think the Mario Bros, the original Mario Bros arcade thing had a console version on some other console. So it's maybe not the first time that this has happened ever, but it's certainly a almost unprecedented event for a Nintendo game to be brought over to other systems. And my understanding from reading interviews about it is that essentially Nintendo said to them that they would publish a Switch version, but only a Switch version. And Platinum wanted to bring it to a larger audience, because I suppose, on the Switch, you still don't know if it's going to get the audience, if the audience is all there, because the Switch has a large install base, but it's not everybody, and I suppose they just wanted to bring it to other platforms, and maybe if their thinking is at all like mine, maybe they wanted to bring it to the PC so there's a better chance of it being preserved going forward, It seems like they have a lot of love for this game, which isn't really that surprising for those of us who played it. It's a very platinum game. There's a lot of platinum stuff in there, and it seemed like a lot of heroic effort was put into it, and a lot of love and care and stuff. So I think they have a soft spot for it, and maybe they wanted to see it preserved just as much as I do. But it's coming out to other systems now, and I thought that I would take this opportunity to encourage you to go and support it. That this is not something that I do. I try to stay out of these kinds of things, but I really think the game deserves it. I didn't want to rush out. See, I could do a recommendation video. I've done recommendation videos in the past, and I didn't want to rush one out because it didn't seem like the Matthew Matos's thing to do, to just go, oh well, this game is coming out now, it's got a Kickstarter and I like it, so I gotta make a recommendation video as quick as I can. If I was gonna do a recommendation video now, I would rather wait for it to come out on Steam and the Switch and stuff, and see how it performs there, and maybe get better quality footage of it, and maybe have new thoughts on how certain things have turned out, because actually one of the weakest parts of the original experience was the load times, because it's very much a game where if you enjoy it, you're going to want to play missions over and over, or you're going to want to go in and out of missions, or it's just there was even secret missions which had load times, and they're hopefully going to be vastly improved now. So that's even one of the major criticisms I would have had for the game, just wiped out instantly. And they're apparently going to make some other changes to make it a bit more friendly to newcomers. So in the same spirit there, I think I should talk a little bit about what the game is. I'll put some footage up on screen, so you should have been looking at it for the past few minutes here. But don't worry, this is all from the early parts of the game. Everything you would see here is in the first hour. You don't really have to worry about spoilers. You can hear some more of my thoughts on the game if you watch my review of it. Now, in my review, I did spoil some things. I made an effort not to spoil some things, and I did spoil other things. So you don't have to go and watch it. There's mechanical spoilers in there as well. It will show you techniques that you would ideally learn for yourself, experiment and learn and stuff. And some story spoilers in there that I think would be cool to see for yourself. If you're going to watch it, if you really are on the fence and you think that you would rather just hear my full thoughts on the game, I did a review when it came out, and you can go and watch that. I would say in this particular case, it might be better to just listen to the review, because I think you will avoid even more spoilers if you just don't look at the visuals for it. I don't recommend that for any of my other videos, or in a general sense, by the way. I put a lot of effort into getting visual samples of things that I'm talking about on the screen, okay? So don't take that as general advice. I know some of you are going to do that anyway, and I can't stop you. But if you have the time, I would like if you paid attention to the visuals going forward. So as for what the game actually is, I know it can seem one of the reasons that it failed. Okay, it's easy to blame the Wii U, and it's easy to say that, maybe Nintendo didn't market it enough, or maybe the critics weren't forgiving enough, or, whatever, right? Blame any other number of things. Part of it is just that looking at the game, it's confusing as to what it is, right? If you look at a short snippet of it, you don't really get it straight away, probably. And I understand that, okay? So I just want to simplify it for people and just say that it's basically a lot like Devil May Cry and Bayonetta. That's when you really get down to the core of the game, that's what it's like. It's a combat system. It's an intricate combat system, which you will get much better at as you play the game. There's a lot of depth to it. There's a scoring system which is practically identical to Beautiful Joe. It actually shares a lot in common with Beautiful Joe. I suppose if you've been following my channel, you're no stranger to the name Hideki Kamiya. This is a Hideki Kamiya game. This would be the end result if I was able to carry on my commentary series that I was doing. Devil May Cry, Beautiful Joe, Bayonetta, The Wonderful 101. This is that, but it took me 3 years to get the Beautiful Joe thing done, so don't count on that anytime soon. Somebody else might have to take up the mantle for Bayonetta and The Wonderful 101. We'll see. Anyway, my point is, it is very much in the same vein of those games. It carries on from those games. It's funny that like they say on the Kickstarter page, and I think this was another problem when they were advertising it as well for Nintendo. They said, I think they maybe said from the creator of Bayonetta, and they didn't advertise any other games either, right? Because those weren't Nintendo-only games, you know? But they don't say it on the Kickstarter page either, which I think is kind of a missed opportunity, because we're kind of in a bubble here. I think there's probably at least one person who's going to watch this video to this point and will go, who the fuck is Hideki Kamiya, right? They're not going to know, even though I've talked for 6 hours about his games, right? Because it's just the way it goes. Not everybody knows these things, right? So they've advertised that it's his game. But really what it is, it's a game from the director of Devil May Cry, Beautiful Joe, Okami, and Bayonetta, okay? And honestly, and this is not an exaggeration, if you like any of those games, there is something to like in The Wonderful 101. I think that's one of the most remarkable features about it, something that I kind of touched on in my review but didn't really get to the full brunt of, is that the more you understand the game, the more you see that it is actually kind of a balanced merger of those 4 games. I would say there's maybe... No, yeah, it really is kind of all 4 of them. I suppose I'll say what I mean. It's like in Beautiful Joe, right? In Devil May Cry came on to the scene, right? And juggling was a big thing, okay? But juggling hadn't really been that big a thing in Kamiya's games, at least until Bayonetta. And I think personally, when you play Bayonetta on the highest difficulty, juggling loses some of its importance again, because you can't juggle, or it's very difficult to juggle certain opponents on the highest difficulty. And the same is true in The Wonderful 101. You can't juggle everything, and even when you do juggle stuff, it's very hard, but it has a lot more importance than Bayonetta. So you've got this juggling aspect from Devil May Cry. And then you've got in Beautiful Joe, you've got the scoring system, which has been in place since Beautiful Joe, which I've talked about in that commentary. But also, Beautiful Joe is very much a back and forth, where a combat encounter goes where the enemy attacks you, they get some time to attack you, you have to make them vulnerable some way, and then once they're vulnerable, you wail away on them. That's the goal, you know? And so it's got a little bit of that in there as well. And then the weapon swap system in The Wonderful 101 is about, you control a little crowd of people, and you have to draw a symbol on screen to choose which weapon you want to swap to, which is a lot like Okami, where you draw things on screen to make things happen in the real world. And even, this is introduced early, so I'll just say, there's even a little tiny feature where you can draw a circle around things to repair them. So like if there's a withering bush, you can draw a circle around it and it blooms like Okami. And then for the Bayonetta stuff, there is a witch time upgrade for your dodge. And I think just the general flow of the game is a lot more like Bayonetta, where it is quite linear and arcadey in that sense, and that you're always moving forward, but there's also quite a few divergences and twists and stuff going on. And the bosses are a little bit more like Bayonetta as well, and it's got Bayonetta's spectacle as well, and it kind of ramps that up in some ways and really runs with that. So there's a lot of different aspects to those games in there, and it's not really evident just by looking at it, but it's there. And then on top of that, all of that is just wrapped up in a really nice package. So you've got a lovely soundtrack. The soundtrack is great. The story is surprisingly good. I don't want to give anybody any like inflated expectations for it. It's not it's not high literature or anything like that, but for what it is, it's better than it has any right to be, I think, in terms of the story department. And the visuals, they're not going to be to everybody's taste, but I like that they're nice and colourful, and I think that in particular contrasts against Bayonetta, which was way too grey. The first installment of it was just too grey, but with the Wonderful 101 they went totally the opposite way, and it's just colour everywhere, and it's nice. So it's got this really nice presentation to it as well. And those are my rough thoughts on the game, and my pitch to you if you haven't played it. So yeah, I really love this game, and I wanted to get the word out about the Kickstarter. I know this isn't the type of thing I normally do. I hope you'll forgive me for it, because I know it's not what people subscribe to this channel for. I know that, and it made me hesitant to do this, but I just wanted to... see, the thing is, it really did fail when it first came out. I mean, even the creators of it have joked that, only it should have been called a Wonderful 13 because only 13 people played it, right? And for a game with so much passion put into it, to see that happen, it's horrible. It's a horrible thing to see. And the last thing I want is for that to happen again. Now, I know you could all go buy it after it comes out, and maybe you should do that. I will say that right now. Maybe you should do that. Personally, I would prefer you buy in now, because there's stretch goals on the Kickstarter and we all get free DLC if you do that now. But I should say as well that I have no affiliation with the Kickstarter, and as of right now I have no idea how the game runs on the Switch or on the PC or anything like that. Okay, I don't know anything like that. For all I know, it could be a disappointing port. Now, the reason I find that very hard to believe that will happen is because this is Platinum's premiere, this is their debut of self-publishing. I think it's a game that they really love as well internally. So I don't think they're gonna mistreat this one. I think if any port they do is going to be good, it would want to be this one, because all eyes are going to be on it to see what we can expect from them going forward. That's my theory anyway. You can decide for yourself whether I'm just letting my love of the game cloud my judgment on that one. Could be. I have no idea, right? My gut says that the Switch version is going to be great. I think that that one is probably a lock for, just, fine. Not going to be any problems with it, really. The frame rate might still dip on that a little bit, because it could get rough in some places on the Wii U version, and if you look at the Bayonetta Switch one, that dips down to about 50 frames per second sometimes in some cases. I think that Bayonetta 1 had kind of similar performance to the Wonderful 101 on Wii U in terms of frame rate and stuff, from what I saw. So if you're looking at a similar jump, then you're looking at maybe dips into the 50 frames per second sometimes. I don't know. They're trying to run it at 1080p, which that is a resolution bump compared to the Switch version of Bayonetta, so you could be in for rougher frame rates there. Personally, I have to imagine that it will be an improvement over the Wii U, even if it's not ideal. Probably going to be an improvement. And the load times should be much, much better, which are one of the bigger problems that I had with the original release. Because, like I said, it's very much a game that if it clicks with you, it's going to inspire a desire for mastery. You're going to want to go back and replay missions and get better ranks on them and stuff like that. And having to go through a load screen every time could really kill your motivation to do that. Because they were much longer than they should have been on the Wii U version. As for the PC version, well, they said that, first of all, for the PS4, they said that the PS4 Pro version will go up to 4K. They haven't said that about the PC release, strangely. I'm hoping that's an oversight or a miscommunication on their end. If it's not, hopefully it can be modded or patched or something like that. I don't know. And also they revealed there was a stretch goal for 1.5 million, which unlocked a DLC mission that's going to be free to backers. And again, I have no idea what the quality of that is going to be like. But I really think they've taken a good approach with the Kickstarter in that they decided not to focus on inserting content into the main game. So if you haven't played the game, that might seem strange to you that they wouldn't, try to cram more in there. The thing is, this is just another little nail in the coffin that was the Wonderful 101 before it came out. I remember before it came out, Kamiya made a tweet along the lines of how he doesn't pad out his games, or he doesn't want his games to be any longer than they need to be, or something along those lines. He said something sort of vague along those lines, and people took it and ran with it and said, well, the Wonderful 101 might turn out to be short or whatever. It actually turned out to be by far the longest game of its type. I think it's kind of a silly complaint to throw against Platinum Games because of the style of game that they are. But if you're somebody who criticizes them for being too short, like say Revengeance, too short, that is definitely not the case with the Wonderful 101. It is not a short game in the slightest. It's very long. I think that there's a better argument to be made that it's too long than too short. So that's certainly not a complaint to be made against it. So they haven't really focused on inserting new bits into missions or anything like that. They're doing side content. They think that they're happy with the game for the most part as it is. Apparently they're going to make some adjustments to bring people into it a bit easier, make the tutorials a bit easier and stuff like that. But the optional stuff just seems to be extra modes, which is nice, and I think they're handling that well. So yeah, at this juncture, it's hard to say. It's hard to say what's going to happen. There is some chance it comes out and it disappoints. I think that there's going to be a case that to be made that the Wii U version is going to have some slight advantage in some way. But I think that one sentiment I've seen online from people discussing the Kickstarter is a lot of confusion about how is this going to work on the Wii U, because you kind of get the impression that the tablet controller is a bigger part of the game than it really is. It was part of the game. It was part of it. But it already worked without it, so you use the analog stick to draw the shapes, and most of us played it that way already, including myself. That works perfectly fine. You just think of them as fighting game inputs. So when you want to make a hand, you draw a circle, that's just the circle motion. You want to make a sword, you draw a line, you just hold the analog stick in one direction. You get used to it with a little bit of practice. So that's not a problem at all. The only problem is that there is some sections which use two screens, right? So obviously on the Wii U there would be a second screen on your controller, and then there would be a main view on your screen, and they would kind of interact in some way. So for example, there's a part where you're climbing along on some grates that are different colors, and there's a ship outside and it shoots one of the colors, and then those colors electrify. So you have to keep an eye on what's happening outside to know when the colors are going to which colors are going to electrify on your screen, right? So you can avoid them, something like that, right? Or there's a code on one screen, you have to input it on another screen, something along those lines. There was those parts in the game, but there was already a picture-in-picture mode on the original release, which meant that you could play the entire thing just with the Pro controller. So you just press a button and it brings up a smaller version of the second screen in the bottom right corner or whatever, and then you can go from there, and you can swap which one is the bigger picture and which one is the smaller picture. Apparently they're going to tweak that in the new release to make it even better. Remains to be seen how that's going to happen. I think if they want this Kickstarter to be a bigger success, they probably should show off some Switch footage. Apparently it's going to be at PAX soon. There's going to be a demo or something like that. It would be nice to see how it runs, assuming they're confident in it, so people get a good idea of what it actually is. Because the thing is, this Kickstarter has, over a lot of other Kickstarters, is that it's a finished product. It's the chances of them botching the port seem pretty low. And again, considering the fact that it's Platinum's first self-publishing venture, it seems even lower, right? So the money isn't even to develop the game. The development is already done, because Platinum are developers, right? So the development is done. They have a Switch port up and running, or they're planning to by the end of the month at least. The game comes out in April. So essentially what you're doing is pre-ordering the game. And I already know the game is great, so I'm happy to do that. If you are against pre-ordering, fine, I understand that position. I only do pre-order stuff for developers that I have a lot of faith in, or developers that I would be okay supporting even if they disappointed me, right? So even if the game turned out to be a disappointment, I would be like, okay, whatever, consider it a little investment in that developer's future, So I actually don't pre-order many games myself. So again, if you are opposed to that, I totally understand, no worries. But yeah, it's essentially a pre-order And I think that they should maybe capitalize on that a bit more by showing it off, you know, because that's something that they have over other Kickstarters. There's going to be a product in your hands in 2 months. Most other Kickstarters can't say the same thing, and we already know that the product is good, or at least I think it's good, and a lot of other people think it's good as well. So yeah, this became one big ramble. I'm trying to think if there's any. I should have wrote down some bullet points of things to hit. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I should hit. I've already reviewed the game, but I tried to come up with a succinct way of describing it on Twitter the other day, and the best thing I could come up with was, I think it's the longest, most varied, and arguably most intricate arcade game in existence. So if that sounds appealing to you at all, if you like the arcade sensibility, or you just want to go through a cool thing where you turn into giant disembodied weapons and smack shit around, you know, that's fine too. But I think there's something for you to enjoy here, and yeah, it's really, the problem is just that it looks more niche than it really is, you know. If you just give it some time, and I don't even mean a lot of time, I think that you can really, if you pay attention and just try and focus on the things that you can do and how you can do them, I think you can really come to grips with this game in just an hour or two, and then just get better from there. You can really start enjoying yourself pretty quickly. But yeah, it's niche, but it's not as niche as you might be leading yourself to believe. You know, that's my point. But then again, I say that about a lot of games, you know. I tried to get everybody to play the Zachtronics games, and they're not as niche as they look either, you know. I think it really is, a lot of games, their bark is worse than their bite, and the Wonderful 101 is one of them. So yeah, I hope that if you give it a shot, you would have a good time. I understand if you want to wait until the Kickstarter is over and see how people feel about the end result of it, but I just thought I would take this opportunity because I don't want to see the game bomb again. I would rather see them have a really successful campaign and come out of that feeling good, and get me some more DLC missions, you know. Yeah, that's about it. So thanks for listening to me ramble. I have no idea how useful this was. You can, and maybe now you understand why I script my videos. Yeah. So that's that for now. I'm working on some other stuff, and I hope to be back soon. I'm probably, since you got this far, I suppose I can tell you what I'm doing next. I'm probably going to put out some smaller videos next. I figured that would be a nice change of pace after the Beautiful Joe commentary. So I'm kind of leaning in to do the opposite. We'll see how that turns out. Sometimes I change focus depending on what's happening, and we'll see how it goes. But that's the plan right now. And yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Okay. That's it. I'm done. Thanks. Hey everyone, I'm back again already. I just listened to what I recorded there, and I think I lived up to my promise to go on a bit of a ramble. We're already at half an hour, so I won't keep you much longer. I did want to say a couple more things though. I think that I kind of got hung up on an intellectual curiosity for a little while there, by which I mean the fact that the game, The Wonderful 101, is kind of an amalgamation of Kamiya's prior 4 games in some way. I think that's very interesting. It's something that's, I don't really know that has ever really happened before in that way. I think that obviously directors always gain skill and reuse certain things that they've done in the past, but it's just with how different those 4 games were, particularly with Okami and Beautiful Joe in the mix as well. I think it's just interesting to see all those little bits and pieces come together in one game. But that doesn't actually tell you why you should play it. So I just want to reiterate that it is a great action game. It's a fantastic action game. I'll be upfront and open with you and say that there's a lot of minigame style stuff in there as well. But what it is it's strung together into a really satisfying campaign, which just means you're always thrown into new situations, you're always learning, you're always unlocking more stuff, getting better, and it's just really enjoyable to replay. And even if you only do one playthrough, which isn't the ideal way to experience it, but even if you do, I think that you will walk away satisfied. So if what I said about it being an arcade game turned you off, maybe question that, because it's a good ride. If you're just going to treat it as a ride that you are along for, you won't get as much out of it as somebody who is willing to go back in and explore and do more with it. But it's a good ride, and It's just very enjoyable. It's a great campaign. There's tons of hidden stuff to find if you go through it again. Lots of techniques to master and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a great game, more than an intellectual curiosity that only somebody like me is going to care about, right? Another thing I wanted to say is that I think I held back my enthusiasm in the last half an hour because I know what it's like to drop money on a game and be disappointed. It's not good, you know? Even as somebody who games are my primary hobby and basically one of the only things I spend money on, they would be the only thing I would spend money on if I could help it. I know what it's like to drop money on a game and be disappointed and feel like the money was wasted, and it hits you hard, and you know it's not good, and I don't want to lead anybody astray like that. And there's two things I want to say about that, which is, first of all, for how few people played it, it's remarkable over the years how many people I've seen say that The Wonderful 101 is their favorite or one of their favorite games. The ratio seems totally off there. It seems totally unusual in that there's a lot of people that really love this game considering how few people played it. So I think statistically speaking, the game is a good bet. Like if you are worried about betting your money on a game, you know, you're trying to decide which one do I want to bet on, it's always tempting to go for the safe bet. But, you know, when you go with a safe bet, you know what you're getting. You're probably not getting your next favorite game out of it. You're getting something that you will enjoy and you'll put away and you'll be content with. And so with The Wonderful 101, yeah, you're making a bet because it's a little bit different. But I think the chances of you walking away having won that bet is higher than with a lot of other games. It's probably not even 50-50 because no game is, you know. It's just a matter of fact that for any given game, most people are going to walk away from it saying, that was good, or that was okay, or, you know, they're going to walk away. But there's always going to be some percentage of people that walk away with a much better impression. And I just think that ratio seems a lot higher with The Wonderful 101. So if you're put off by it because it looks weird, I think that might allay your fears a little bit. It's a bet, but it does seem like a good bet to me. It's entirely possible I live in a wonderful echo chamber, but what can I say? And another thing I wanted to say, what was it I wanted to say? Oh, I've forgotten. That's great. It's great to sit in front of a microphone and forget what you wanted to tell a load of people. Hang on, it'll come to me. Just wait. Maybe I should whistle. I'll give you another whistle while you wait. Oh yeah, I think what I wanted to say was that it's the kind of game you really need to get your hands on to form a proper opinion of. You know, you can't look at it and decide that it's not for you and be totally sure about that. So I suppose this is my way of just encouraging you to make that leap and try it for yourself. Like I said, I don't know how the port's going to turn out, but you know, even if this thing turns out poorly or you don't personally like the game, just know that you're supporting a game a lot of us really care about, myself included, obviously. I'm going to let my enthusiasm shine through here for real. I love this game. It's my favorite game. I want to see it personally. I don't want to mislead anybody. I don't want to push you to do anything you're uncomfortable with, but personally I want to see it shatter as many stretch goals as possible. I want as much Wonderful 101 content in my life as I can reasonably squeeze out of Platinum Games right now, and I really hope that it succeeds. I hope at least a few of you make the jump because of me, and more than that, I hope that you really enjoy the game if you get your hands on it. So yeah, take a look at the Kickstarter page. I'll have it in the description. I'll have a link to my review there as well in case you're not convinced. And if you're still on the fence as well, you could check back later because, like I said, there will be some version of it at PAX, which is, I think it's later this month. It's sometime before the Kickstarter campaign ends anyway. I know that much. So there will be footage of it out there somewhere so we can see how it looks. And I think it's going to be fine. But if you're not convinced, just please have a look. And yeah, that's it. I'm enthused. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I'm already happy. It's got the ports are already confirmed, you know, that they hit those stretch goals. There's even a little bit of DLC coming. Probably going to get to the 2 million before it ends. I would really hope so. But the thing has slowed down a lot. Maybe you guys can give it a bit of a boost, you know, and keep the ball rolling. But even if nothing comes of this video, I'm already happy. You know, I just want to share it with as many people and try to squeeze out a little bit more of it and keep the enthusiasm up and everything. So yeah, I'm happy with it, as you can imagine. Yeah, it's I'm looking forward to it. Oh yeah, I never said as well. Maybe this is another incentive for you. I'm almost certainly going to put out some kind of video about the Wonderful 101 now. I mean, I don't know, there could be multiple, because I've even tried to write some over the years and scrapped them because it seemed kind of like a waste of time, and I wasn't sure if anybody was interested. But we're full steam ahead now. You know, ideally I would like to do that commentary video someday, but obviously that takes a long time. And I need to build up a pool of ideas for the Bayonetta one, and I need to actually try and pure platinum that game, which is not going to play to my strengths because it's very fast paced. But I would love to do one of those for the Wonderful 101 someday as well, if I could. It wouldn't be a full playthrough because it's too long. It's way too long to do the full thing like I did for Devil May Cry and Beautiful Joe. But I'd love to cover it someday in that kind of capacity. Who knows if we'll ever get there? Like I said, it took 3 years to do Beautiful Joe. But at the very least, I might do some kind of intro tutorial type thing when it releases, to help ease people in, to help you get into it a bit easier. I might do a recommendation video. I did a recommendation for Space Chem and then a review of Space Chem, so now it's time to see if I can do it the other way around, do a Wonderful One review and then follow it up with a recommendation. I might do that, but I think, again, at this point, it just seems better to wait for it to come out and get into the remastered version now and see how that goes. They said they're going to improve the tutorials in the remastered version and help people get into it a bit easier, so hopefully that'll be easier to do even if I don't make that kind of tutorial thing. But yeah, if that's an incentive for you at all, there's probably going to be some kind of Wonderful 101 thing for me in the future. I'm looking forward to the game. I'm going to want to talk about it. We'll see what happens. But yeah, thanks for listening to me ramble on. Like I said, check out the Kickstarter and my review if you like. Check out video footage of it, whatever you like, anywhere. Just give it a look and see. Keep an open mind about it and consider it. At the very least, I'm glad to have just got the word out because I just want to make sure that everybody's at least aware that there's a Kickstarter going on, you know? So that's it from me. My sign-off last time was pretty shitty, so this time I'm going to give you a nice stay wonderful. All right?